Welcome to Trade.com. This is John. This report is for the 23rd, and well, yeah, started a Monday off fairly decent, but even within that initial up push, was already starting to have some difficulties, and then we hit this point here, and that was about the end of it, and from there, traded all the way back to the gap down lows that had started the early morning trade. Filled it in very nicely, but then it wasn't done there. They made some attempts to try and push things back, but it was pretty much dead from that point because then you ended up with this constant reporting of Iran and the difficulties there, and they're claiming they're not agreeing to this, that, and the other. At the same time, they're shipping, every single container they can out of the Strait of Hormuz with as much oil as possible to try and get some revenue because they are definitely starving for money at this particular point. And of course, we're talking about the renewing of the blockade, potentially bombing again, and blah 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 blah. It's old already. No surprise with any of that, and doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, the oil prices are still excessively high, and the market's starting to feel this. And so now you're getting into the summer's doldrums. And so we start with where we're at starting this morning, and you can see that from the sell signal that ended just before the day flipped over. Boom. Yeah, then we're off. Almost 100 points already. So yeah, there's that. We look at it from a 50K standpoint. Yeah. So brief little move up, and boom, that just took it out. And like I said, we would not hold the 50%. Uh, and then let's just go ahead and look at the daily because we talked about this. Once we got down to that level, given what we were seeing from the readings, a breakdown of magenta was going to go. And I mean, so you're like, how did you know? And it's like, there's nothing to know. It was just pretty much staring you right in the face. And that's the whole point of mentioning these breakdowns. And you can see the deterioration that was building over time. Even though we made new highs, we were doing this under weaker configurations each time. And then you had the MBI white lead here within this jagged mess of nothingness. And yeah, the breakdown below the 33. So then it was just a question of, okay, when are you going to get the final move below yellow and carry it through? And remember, we talked about this, the spread up between the cyan and green. Okay, we saw it intraday. It became fairly clean. No shocks, no surprises. But to people who don't have those readings, yeah, it's like, well, what happened? And it's obvious what happened. Things are frothy. You look at the SpaceX situation. I mean, that thing shot up and pump and dumped. At the same time, they changed requirements on day trading and things like that, and you can see the effect that it has. Now the Nasdaq is performing a bit better, hasn't even reached there, but it was doing better just from a reading standpoint. But getting the same crossover in that, and if that starts to accelerate once it hits the 76, we get a true test. I suspect it will not hold at that point, in which case then you would actually have. Alarm whistles going off and things would get more. And your problem is right here. This is not a significant decline. Remember how it was supposed to drop faster than, blah, 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 blah. Well, no, this is not. The 70s for oil is no. 50s, yeah. So you're, $20 a barrel off where you need to be to have real meaningful impact. Now, the fine consumer has basically adopted to this, but they're not set yet for what's about to happen come the fall. Then you throw in the new reports of the new El Nino and what that's going to do from a famine standpoint. Yeah, of course, we go to the EU. Now, Britain's not in the EU, but of course, they just lost their leader. You're having this huge uprising throughout the EU from the whole migrant influx and the amount of crime and just the degradation of European cities. You wouldn't believe the shift, but it's pretty dramatic. Even here, you've gone from super safe places to where not anymore, which is shocking, literally, and it's just devolving into mayhem because, they're playing by Western rules, and you've imported people who don't have those values and they don't have their rules, and this is what you get. Now that we're still at 114 on the euro, I mean, how? Like how? The economic output of the EU zone right now is pathetic, to say the least, relative to the U.S. And that's the only thing you can measure it by. That's the whole point of the euro to dollar. Like, what are you talking about? It's not even close. Um, Still no upside pressure to gold in that. And then again, we get back into this paper trading versus the actual currency. You still go to the actual physical metal, and it's trading higher than the paper currency. And that bifurcation, and it gets dealt with at a certain point, because once the squeeze starts, and it will when inflation numbers start coming through much higher than people expect, which why would they be higher than people expect unless they're just foolish as about what to expect? It's a whole separate thing. And likewise, Bitcoin just held into the doldrums. So, crypto, for all the talk, remember, was it July 4th? All the things are supposed to convert to tokens, and there's going to be utopia in the world, and just nonsense. And, this is what summers are all about. Everyone's throwing in their hype, trying to move markets, while main players sold in May and went away for the summertime, and left all their secondary teams to try and scrape for scraps here off of the bottom line. Valuation wise, we're still, I think, probably excessive, particularly if gold continues its decline. You're going to get that ratio difference between the two evening out, and you get closer to a balance there where, the devaluation versus the move up. And again, this all comes back to the numbers that we're going to start to see coming out on growth and sustainability, unemployment, those kind of things. And it's going to matter now. So be ready for that. This is long and the short of it. Not trying to bring anyone's day down, but it is what it is. Just pay attention to it. And when you look at the weekly chart, you can see how wild that is. There's a long way to go just to get back to where things were, at the beginning of the year. So that's how big the move's been, and that shows you, though, how far things can move back. So keep that one in mind as well. I mean, that's over 1,000 points. Anyway, that's the long and the short of it for now. As always, anything relevant, I'll put on the team chat. Have a good one. Trade well.